amazing. Okay, cool. So let's just jump in so we can save these people's time. So before, when I gave you and I told you about my hypnosis for weight loss course, tell me a little bit and tell everybody a little bit about where you were at.
Yeah, so as Leslie was saying earlier, I was recently certified as a health and life coach, and I also have a background in clinical nutrition. But at that time in my life, I was going through a huge transformation in my personal life. And I was on the wake of my 30th birthday, and I made a promise to myself that I would never be on a diet again for the rest of my life. And I made this promise to myself because it was something I wanted to create for my clients. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to do that until I did it for me. And I just wanted the freedom from it because it's something I had been doing my whole life. And everything that I learned in my education gave me some tools where I was able to get the ball rolling, but there was just a level that I could never really quite penetrate. And so I had done hypnosis before for other things, and it worked really, really well. So to me, it seemed like kind of, well, of course I'm going to do it. I had already known Leslie, and it just seemed like the logical next step for me to try hypnosis and see if I could break through that last barrier.
I love that. So what had you come to the decision? Like, why was it important to you to never diet again? What was life like when you were dieting?
Well, it was just a constant back and forth. It's either you're on a diet or you're not. You're not really ever existing with food in a way that feels natural, because I was either like restricting myself, or I was just like completely off, and it was like, yeah, whatever, doesn't really matter. There was no balance. And I think, it was also like really challenging because I had all this education to sort of give me theoretically like all the tools that I needed, but it was just like, it almost made it harder because it was like, how come I can't do this if I have all these tools, and if I can create like transformations for other people in this, like what's going on with me that's like keeping me from like being able to do that. And so yeah, it was just like, I just wanted to experience freedom, and I was going into the next decade of my life, and I knew I wanted it to look drastically different. And I think it keeps us small as women. It keeps us small to be so obsessed with food all the time. It keeps us from doing what we want to do.
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. Like, I've heard different things of people saying about like, if you're a grown woman, it's like, oh, I can't eat that. I can't have that. I do that. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, like you make your own decisions, like make it in the present moment, and there's nothing wrong with that, or like choosing to have a body that looks a certain way. But yeah. And one of the things I see in my clients all the time, their top value is freedom. And it's like being on a diet is like the opposite of that value, right? It's like, how can, you really be living that value full out if you're constantly thinking about like, I can have that, I can't have that. And yeah, that all or nothing thinking, like, I'm completely off the diet and I'm going to the races and binging or hiding food or whatever I'm doing, or I'm completely on the diet and perfect all the time and pretending that everything is okay, but really my mental space is actually pretty crazy, and it can feel awful for people.
Yeah.
And when absolutely. I find people, that's the place that they're in, is like, they feel like they're in a battle in their brain.
Yeah.
Just back and forth. I want to lose weight, but I'm going to eat that food. And then they're mad at themselves. And it's just this vicious cycle that doesn't ever stop. And it's awful for people.
It's exhausting.
And then there's exhausting.
Yeah. And then there's a whole thing of like applying morality to it, because when we're on a diet, then some foods are good and some foods are bad. And if we eat the good foods, then we're being good. And if we eat the bad foods, then we're being bad. And so it creates this awful vicious cycle where we over-identify with the foods themselves and identify with a certain morality around it. And it just gets real weird really fast.
Yeah, absolutely. How much we put ourselves in jail with like, this is good, this is bad, I'm good, I'm bad, all that kind of stuff. I'm curious also, because something that I see a lot in my clients is like, and you're someone who really cares about the empowerment of women, similar missions and values as I have. And so what tie do you see between a woman being free around whatever she chooses to eat in every new moment and her success in a healthy, happy relationship?
Oh my gosh. It's everything, right? I mean, I think for a lot of women, we can identify with that feeling of, not being free with food, having that also connected with not feeling free in our bodies, and having that immediately impact the levels of intimacy that we're able to have, not just with romantic partners, but with anybody in our lives. It's like this invisible wall that we just use, and it keeps us from having those connections that we really need. And it's kind of a vicious cycle because we need those connections in order to feel fulfilled. So we're not reaching for food, but we're not getting them. And it's just this, yeah, it spirals out really fast.
Yeah, 100%. That relationship with yourself, like especially like as soon as you fall off the food plan, like how vicious and cruel that you can be to yourself, and then your self-confidence tanks, and then you're just not happy. And it's like, of course, like that's the way that you show up. So one of the things that like it drives me crazy all the time. It's like if I talk to a woman and say she's like a mother or just any, it's like a woman's like amazing gift that she has to offer the world is just like her ability to be present and like happy, loving space. But if you're constantly neurotic in your brain all the time and thinking about like, I do this, I don't do that, I have to do this, I can't do that, like it's literally like there's no space. There's no space for that like amazing, like you said, intimacy and love. And it just like cuts off the thing that I believe that at the end of the day, everybody's actually really craving and hungry for is that intimacy and that connection, but it has to start with you. So a lot of this stuff, like the kind of, if we want to give people a little sneak peek into the back end of the Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss program, like it's about so much more than the food, but we get into that relationship with self and relationship with the thoughts that you're thinking. So is there anything you want to share about that made a difference for you?
Yeah, well, I think, the fact is that everything on the back end is what makes the relationship with food sort of like automatically heal itself. It's never been about the food, right? And so I think for me, in my experience with it, it was like, well, for me, it was just wonderful because I spent so much of the hypnosis time like while I was sleeping. So it just felt like so automatic and easy in that way. But then with the support from you and the support from others in the group, it was just really nice to like show up and actually have conversations about our real lives, and actually in ways that doesn't really exist organically for a lot of us. And just kind of like normalizing the experience of having a hard relationship with food. I think we all logically know that this is sort of a universal struggle, but until you have a chance to actually have conversations and like break it down and have that experience of feeling normal in it, can we really come to like a baseline where we can actually address it, and go into like deeper levels of healing and figure out where that actually stemmed from so we can kind of pull it out at the root. So that was really helpful for me.
Yeah. I was just talking to a potential client today, and like what we really got to was that like what she's longing for is just to feel that experience of love and acceptance from her in her situation from a man. Right. And it's like the really what she came to was like, I'm never going to understand that until I find out how to love and accept myself by myself.
Yeah.
And it's that thing. It's like when we're seeking outside of ourselves, looking for a relationship, looking for that perfect body, looking for that, right? It's like what we're really searching for at the root of it, like love, acceptance, like all of those. It's part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like we need that stuff to feel complete and to survive. And it's so normal and natural to try to seek for that stuff in food and all that kind of stuff. But in order to really attract the kind of results that you're looking for in life, whether it is an amazing, loving relationship or a lean, strong, and healthy body or a job of your dreams or a vacation of your dreams, like you have to learn how to give yourself that first before you can seek it outside of yourself. And once we do that deep inner work and kind of dig within, that's when things can really unfold. And we did mention that if it came up that we could talk about some of that inner work. So I'll just ask you, like, some of the stuff that we do is like going into the body and doing some of that psychosomatic kind of pulling out those old beliefs and healing some of that stuff. So what would you feel inspired to share about any of those experiences that you've had?
Well, I think it's the work that I knew would be helpful to me, but when it's really hard to do it kind of on your own, and having you to sort of walk me through those experiences and guide it, it just felt like, oh, okay, no, this isn't something that's like so beyond like really what I'm capable of doing. Like the space is held, like I'm safe, it's contained. And it's kind of when you dive into those like deeper parts of yourself that you haven't visited since maybe the initial occurrence of the thing that is making you feel that way or have these belief systems now, it can be really confronting. It's innately confronting. And so, but it's sort of like, you have to pass that threshold. And that's really like on the other side of that is the transformation that we're all looking for, that we are trying to get through a diet. But really that diet is only making that story more concrete. It's having the adverse reaction to what we want. Like that's the only way to do it, is to go in and just pull it out of the root.
Yeah, that's a
So
really good point. Yeah,
yeah.
something that I think stops people all the time is the fact that they are just too scared to go and feel that emotion that they're feeling.
Mhm.
So it's like, in, like you're saying, that safe contained container, and like, same thing, like I have my own spiritual healer and coach to guide me through different psychosomatic experiences like that, because yeah, doing it on your own, it's just not the same. You can't let go the same way that you can when someone else is holding that space for you.
Mhm.
So yeah, and when we're talking about the subconscious mind, like 95% of the results that you're getting in life are based off, whatever happened to you in the first 10 years of life. And you're just like fulfilling these prophecies over and over again, unless you're diligently going and doing that work and uncovering that stuff and watching how things shift in your day-to-day life. And the hypnosis is kind of that introductory tool to that. But yeah, so often it's just like I see people and like you're numbing out your pain. Like anybody who's watching this, like if food is like your best friend in the world or whatever, it's like you're numbing out your pain. And
Yeah.
that pain is the direct access to your transformation and to never having to struggle with that stuff again. So yeah, I think that's just such an important thing, is like, don't be scared of that emotion. And if you are, like, go towards it, somehow find a way, get some support to go towards that emotion, because there's gold underneath that 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Beautiful.
more scared you are of it, be happy, because that means that's probably where your solution lies. It's like your
Mhm.
yeah.
Right there, right? Going towards that thing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome, Emily. So then, yeah, I know that our course and all the different things that you were already working on prior to the course, like, really inspired you to be doing what it is that you're doing now. So why don't you share a little bit about what you're up to these days?
Yeah, so I'm a holistic health and mindset coach. So I do work with my clients to create a new experience with food and with their bodies. That's my goal in life, is that they feel empowered and that they can also make that decision that I did, to never have to be on a diet again for the rest of their lives. And that is my sole intention when I work with people, in addition to supporting them with using other tools to work on other areas of their wellness and their life. So, oftentimes we work on relationships, like we were talking about earlier, like money mindset, abundance, things like that. All of the things where, we think we're being held back in one area, but how we do one thing is how we do everything. So I sort of work with them in all of those things. So, yeah. And right now,
Beautiful.
I do have a community online of women who are really dedicated to their wellness. And I go live there about once a week and give some content and share my story, share my tips, and we have some awesome conversations there. So,
Awesome. So
yeah.
how can people join that group?
Yeah, definitely. If anyone here feels called to join that community, please. It's called Intuitive Wellness Masterminds, and it is a Facebook group. Totally
Beautiful.
free, super fun.
Awesome.
I'd
And
love
then
to
we'll
have
make
you.
sure that you post the link for that below in the comments as soon as we get off that. Definitely join Emily's group. She's got amazing things to say. She really eats, drinks, breathes this spirituality and intuitive and feminine beauty in her everyday life. She is walking the walk. So I definitely recommend hooking up with her if you're resonating with her. And if anybody has any questions about hypnosis and how it may or may not be able to support you on your path and help you get out of that needing and constantly obsessing and thinking about food, or not being able to control, what it is that you're doing or not doing, feel free to send me a message. Other than that, Emily, thank you so much for being here. And thanks for those people who watched past our technology glitches.
Yes,
And
thank you.
yeah, we'll be back on soon with some other people that I'm going to be interviewing, and more to come, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Leslie. Thanks, everyone.
Bye bye.